terms of whatever research we are offering to our students. As an institution, what new opportunities or assignments can be worked out rather than just having one or two options. Many a times it was, I mean, a kind of problem or a kind of complaints from the students might have received. That's why we want to do original research in some aspects. And these kind of students would be very less in numbers. So, for example, if 50 students, 100 students are there in the class, at least 10% students are really willing to work, original contribution. And how to provide them that opportunity, that sometimes because of the institution's limitation, sometimes faculty members, they are not encouraged or they're not allowed to introduce their own way by which they are trying to encourage research. So is there a possibility where, because new educational policy is focusing more on giving liberty to the faculties, so that they can provide multiple opportunities and options to the students to indulge in various kind of activities. My discussion would be more focused on the students, those who are working as an assignment or dissertation at level or as a PhD students, because they are directly concerned and we are directly related in terms of many of you also recently might have completed your PhD. So you might also have experienced multiple kind of problems which a researcher faces. So everything is almost known to every one of us. Research methodology or research is not a new concept for us. The only problem is that how to convince the institutions or the regulators to provide more liberty to the individual faculties rather than regulating it by way of prescribed forms. And in case if, because we are experimenting it from almost 2 decades, 3 decades, the same kind of practices. So is it possible that we can provide the liberty to the faculty members where they can explore the possibilities, whatever manner they can ignite or encourage the students to indulge in original research? Because last month I was reading an article in the PW where one of the finding in terms of analysis of the data of published work uploaded on the Shodhganga and other platforms, the finding was much of the work was reproduction of the already existing content rather than having the original empirical research. So in case if we are only reproducing or assembling the research content, whereby at the end we are also saying that this work is addition to the existing literature, but how much we are adding it to it? We are asking in many cases, the institutions, they provide the format that at least the dissertation must be of 150 pages or the PhD thesis must be of 300 pages. Now in these 150 pages or 300 pages, how many pages are the words are the real contribution of the students? If in case the reason why the UGC introduced this publication of research papers for awarding the PhD thesis, one of the reasons was to encourage the students to indulge in original writing while they are pursuing the PhD. But that also is now diluted. So they say that to enhance the quality, we will say that the student should publish it in the care-list journal or the Scopus Index journal. Now, care-list journal or the Scopus Index journal, you know the how you can easily publish it or how difficult to publish it. Both way you can publish it. If you are really willing to work or to do some original research, then maybe the standard journals will not accept. They will ask you to revise multiple times. So much so that sometimes you feel that the original theme of the paper is changed completely. But there are papers which are Scopus Index, care-list journals also, where whatever you will send, they will publish it, but publish it by charging you something. There are Scopus Index journal where you pay 30,000, they will immediately publish your article. And in case if you want that your article must be published after 6 months, then the charges will be different. So how far these practices are up to an extent, one critical analysis was that somehow the UGC is responsible for these kind of practices which are unethical in terms of education department. Because now they have created all these policies were implemented with some positive aspects to achieve certain goals, to improve the standards. But unfortunately, it has not reached to that level, or these objectives were not fulfilled. Why so? Why so? Say, for example, the earlier the promotions were based on mainly on interviews. That the institutions will prescribe the procedure whereby if you have completed successfully these many years, they will simply have a report of the serials and they'll either by way of constituting a selection committee or on the recommendation of the senior, they'll promote. But that was also challenged in the academic institution by saying that so much of partiality is there, favoritism is there, nepotism is there. So they have introduced the API score system. Now, API system, this is good where the faculties are encouraged to indulge in some research contribution. And they have decided the parameters, marks also, API scores also, so that the faculties should engage themselves all the time in some or the other activities. And it is intensive based. So even if you are delivering a lecture, it will be counted. If you are publishing, it will be counted. If you are organizing something, it will be counted. But that is also again resulting into the same where the seminar conferences, even if it is not relevant, and during this COVID pandemic, and there were some applications where we scrutinized that a person is attending 3 online courses on the same period. So, and we cannot expect these kind of things from academicians. So if academicians are indulging in such practices, so some why I'm saying, because everybody is concerned about their career growth, but career growth on the basis of such kind of practices, it will not result, or that's why the whole policy fails. So we are up to an extent responsible. I include myself also, because somewhere we always used to give the examples of the institutions of European countries that they follow this practice, their evaluation pattern is very unique, their examination pattern is very unique, their research are really contributing to the societies. But what kind of facilities they are providing? How many number of students are there? If you will be provided with only 4 students, you will also be indulging or providing that kind of facility. But in case if you have to handle a class of 200 students, it will not be even if you are willing to encourage original research, you will not be able to complete it or to provide such kind of opportunities because you also have limited period of time. And if you are I mean supervising the project supervision or the PhD supervision dissertations, then also how much time you are giving to your students for guiding them. Majority of time, you will find that once their work is completed, they will come for signing the certificates. And they will send you the email also, they will send you the soft copy also. But due to your busy schedule, I'm not saying that you are not willing, but sometimes the faculty members are so much overburdened that they are not finding time to evaluate it. And by compulsion, why compulsion? Because there are deadlines. If in case you will not submit, then either the student would be punished, their marks will be rejected, and being the faculty, you are all you always consider their application and you sign it in all odd times. So there are multiple reasons. And for these problems, if we want solution, then somewhere at institutional level or at faculty levels, we need to find out the ways how we can encourage the students, not only by simply providing them the guidance, but we need to find out the ways and possibilities. Instead of 20 pages article, if you say that even if you write 2 pages original work, you will be given incentive for that. or for that matter, you don't do anything, but publish a good article, right? Now, how many of institutions will agree on that? So there are many reasons why we are not excelling in research. So it is very easy to come to this conclusion in the form of an article that 60% or 70% of work is merely a compilation of the existing work, or it's only assembling of the literature which is already existing. But how much time you are giving? Your expectation itself, I mean, uh, the regulatory bodies, be it as UGC, their expectations all are also sometimes are unrealistic. So if you are expecting that a person should write 3 papers in 3 years, Scopus Index journals, sometimes that period is also very less because the Scopus Index journal they take so much of time, sometimes more than 2 years. So and then if you, because you all are human beings, if with the same efforts you can publish 5 pages, 10 pages, 5 articles, 10 articles, why you will take that where the marks are same? You are getting 10 marks or 10 points for any number of scores index papers. So where you will get publication in 2 months or 3 months, why you will prefer that journal where they are taking so much time? Which means somewhere we are also compromising. Why we are compromising? Because the trend which is prevailing is compelling all of us to take part in the same kind of activity. If in case if and that's why you say that the original research or the real contribution in research is only of those people who are really interested. Like social scientists, if they are studying any tribal community, so they will not just take the interviews of, they will live with them for years so that they will understand each and every aspect. And then they give all the details with reference to research that how we can establish this community into mainstream society. Otherwise, there are so many doubts. So that's why we say that when it comes to the empirical research, this is the new trend that the institutions are always saying that at least one chapter you should indulge into empirical research. So there are problems. Why am I saying that these are the common problems? Research methodology, the mods, the various kind of techniques, tools, we all know. But there are limitations. How to break these limitations is the main concern with reference to the research methods and research methodology. If the sooner we resolve these issues, it will be beneficial for all. The latter would be the same trends and practice will prevail, and it will spoil the whole concept of research. I am not discouraging. I know that everyone's contribution is positively improving the system. But somewhere we should encourage the others also. Like students, if they will not be encouraged to indulge into original research, then sometimes it will affect in a longer period of time that they will indulge in the same practice for long. And that's why now the new trend is I must, all these, whenever you are or wherever you are placed, the institutions are asking for assignments. So you are giving the assignments to all the students, maybe in one subject or one subject in a semester or in every semester, every subject. Now, in majority of the cases, the assignments are the project writing or the moot court competitions. Major division is there. And now the simple problem is, will you be able to formulate 100 research topics for your class? Right? And that too every year. If you are teaching contract, if you are teaching IPR, and your strength is at least 50 number, minimum 50s, will you be able to formulate 50 new topics? One problem. Second problem, then what you will do? Either you will ask the students to provide their area of interest or a suggested topic. Now, a student who has to study this subject, right, who is also not selected as by choice, but by option or by compulsion, because these are the mandatory subjects of prescribed by the VCA. So a subject he has never studied, right? Which is not his area of interest also. Where you are saying that propose a topic. Now what he will do? He'll simply Google search, or he will ask his friends, because nowadays in coaching centers there are so many friends. A majority of friends either got selected in some other institution or other institutions. Some seniors also. So they will ask, are the seniors also in the same campus? Let's just suggest us the topic for this. And you also provide them the time of at least a week to discuss. And then they will find, sir, if you have some ready-made material, just provide me the topics so that I will change it. These are all the practices which we are realizing. But we are not doing. One option would be what we are also doing, because the same problem we are also facing. So what we are doing, that we are changing the assignments every year. So last year we have introduced around 16 new different kind of assignments. Instead of project writing, we are also allowing them to go on field studies. We are asking them to write book reviews. We are asking them to prepare documentaries. We are asking them to depict some stories through photography. So we have created at least 16 different categories, and that experiment worked. That's why I'm just saying that you can also offer these kind of practices subject to, I mean, if you will discuss with your authorities, they will also agree on it, because everywhere the authorities are also same. They also willing to resolve the problems. Only you need to take the initiative. So wherever you are, or in whatever manner you are associated with these kind of activities, or even in your own subject, whatever subject you are teaching, at least prepare 10 different kinds of assignments, right? Or in case if, say for example, moot courts are always there, so you can prepare the propositions in which they are supposed to originally work on. But these are also the other options in which if you prepare and submit to the authorities, they will very happily accept it. Now, what would be your role in that condition? Then in that condition, your role would be you need to draft a policy, proper policy, because the marks cannot be, I mean, vary. If there is one component of 40 marks of assignment, then other would also be of 40 marks. Maybe the criteria would be same, that written submission of 20 marks and 10 marks Viva or PPT presentation, whatever the bifurcation remains in. So you need to draft a policies for this assignment. That what is your expectation, or how you will engage the students to encourage or do some original research. So in case if you say that field study, in field study, you find out the topics where there is a scope of field study. So, for example, the impact of right to information in certain community or some institution or wherever nearby, because this is the batch or the students which will not be much interested to spend money. So you need to find out the feasibility also. It's not that creating something which is ideally very good, but practically it is not possible. So group say combined or a field study, where you say that just visit to institution and find out the impact of misleading advertisement on the automobile or communication. There are so many topics. You all know that where is the scope of conducting the empirical research. Then, if possible, you also provide them the formats, because if you are expecting something original, then you need to train them. They will be very new. Majority of the research fails when it comes to the academic research, because the researchers, they're not aware about. We expect so many things without telling them that how to do this, how to complete this. So one more suggestion would be you also compile a kind of booklet, because at the initial stage, uh, say for example, first year students will join almost in all institutions by July or August. And after joining, within 15 days, you expect to submit the projects, because projects will start, or within 1 month, they have to submit the projects and all. Where in the orientation, only 1 or 2 lecture would be there. They will not be able to understand that what is your expectation. They're only considering it as a part of their performance to pass the examination. So if that mindset is required to be changed, then you need to encourage them by explaining that what your expectations are. Once you will explain them, you will find them that the result would be better than whatever your expectations are. But if we will not tell them that what we are expecting, and we are saying that we want this, then it fails. So first aspect is that divide your assignments into various categories, and then form or draft a booklet where they can study. And what kind of contents you need to explain in that booklet? First, the nature of assignment which you are giving. So, for example, field study. So, what they are supposed to do in the field study? It should not be very lengthy, and the bullet points also. But explaining it, then time period, and since you are asking for conducting some empirical study, then you need to explain them in the booklet itself that this will involve the interaction or the questionnaire or what kind of information, what would be the size of it, how you will select the sample. So you need to give a brief. And there are so much of content available. There are standard content available online also, because research methodology is a very common trend, common subject, which applies in all field, all branches. The difference is only in implementation of the methodology. Otherwise, social sciences, liberal sciences, humanities, majority of the content remains same, and there are very crisp, uh, I mean, literature available online. So even if you will take the help of some of the PPTs or the PDF files, not more than 5 page, 6 page, the information which is required to understand is available. You just modify it, see the feasibility, how these people will be able to understand. And then if you provide the material and give explanation in 1 or 2 lectures, at least they will be able to understand. So for each part which you are dividing, be it as a field study or a photography or documentary making or report writing, case comments. Okay? So for everything you prepare a detail, and along with the detail, you also prepare the formats in which they need to submit the assignment. What kind of format would be that the number of pages, front page, second page, then in what manner the abbreviation should be used, the bibliography, citation mode, so that the booklet will provide them complete information. They will not trouble you again and again. They will just read it and they will implement it. And then also, very important thing is that on what parameters you will evaluate them. The evaluation format should also be provided in that. So if you will do this kind of activity, then it will encourage them to indulge into some original research. So, and then on the basis of whatever they are now, it depends on the teachers. If you want, you can give them some original in individual capacity, or you can divide into groups also. Like field study, you can divide into five students group, and 10 students group. Their responsibilities can also be fixed, because in majority of the cases, the time frame is very limited for academic assignments. If you give the assignment, then they need to submit it within 1 month. So if individually they are taking up, 1 month will be very less. Sometimes they will not be able to understand. So somewhere you need to guide them and prepare the group of 10 people, just explain them, divide them, that these are the institutions. At least 10 students they have to interview or collect the information. And then the other process also, that how they have to examine it. That maybe for a senior student also, initial stage, first year students, second year students, you can give some lighter kind of assignment. But the third year, fourth year student or fifth year students, where they understand many things, then you can encourage them to indulge into these kind of activities, which will be more fruitful, right? Rather than the so the objective of discussing this thing is that somewhere we should try to encourage the students to indulge into original research, and these are the ways. Similarly, now this was only for the assignments. The same can be worked for the article writing, right? How many of these students, they are very shy. They don't ask anything, neither from the teacher, nor from their batchmate, nor from the seniors also. So for them, how to provide them? So that kind of booklet be prepared for that also. Article writing, providing them with now the list of where they can publish it is also available. Provide them all the details. If you provide them information, then your expectation is legitimate. Otherwise, without providing or sharing the information, if we expect that they should do wonder, they are capable of doing that. But we need to guide them and we need to provide them the information based on which they will really excel. So this is a general kind of discussion which I was willing to this. You know that I'm troubling you on Sunday, but that was only the option. I will just
maybe 2 pages. We expect it. And how do you expect the researcher?
No, that's why the somewhere because as there the role of supervisor should also be somewhere.
Because it's privilege in all colleges. Then, yes,
No. The problem is everywhere. Not today, and it is also not exception. So somewhere we need to think, or we need to draft a policy where this word limitation may be worked out. So institution and for that, I think in every institution there is a specific committee, or either the curriculum development committee or the committees of the faculties who recommend this. So in case if the feasible solution would be that you draft the policy in general by providing exception to one or two faculties who are willing for as an experiment, or within the existing also you can provide them an exception that in this subject will allow it. Why a standard kind of format for all the subjects, right? Where the institution are agreeing that the nature and requirement of assignments for each and every subject is different. For example, in first year, we in these integrated courses, there are social science subjects, there are language subjects, there are law subjects. Now, we up to an extent define the same parameters for all the subjects, where even sometimes the faculties also says that at least provide us the liberty to draft our own parameters to encourage the students to evaluate on certain parameters. So in case if we can give them this liberty to design it for one semester, not for all, even if within that group, say for example, 100 students in one subject, you give them 20 students a different kind of assignment and see that how it is resulting. If it works for these 20 students, then it will work for the other remaining 80 students also. And then keep changing on it. See, the problem comes only when we are rigid towards only one parameter or one kind of policy. And that's why the UGC and the regulatory bodies say that you need to revisit your academic plans at least once in 3 years. Even every year you can revisit it. That's why now, since the results were not achieved, so in national education policy, you might have studied that now they are incorporating in the syllabus itself that what are the learning objectives, what would be the learning outcomes, what are the ways by which you are going to evaluate these kind of changes, the learner outcome. It should be, and they have made a part of NAC accreditation also. So your syllabuses, your CDC, everything would be examined at that point of time. So if we are making, because what we also initially did the same thing. What we did, we had the syllabuses. And when these kind of parameters are, we simply ask this faculty members to change and to incorporate without realizing initially that these are required to be measured also. How it will be measured? So in case if we have fixed the learning objectives, like 5 learning objectives for each and every module. And accordingly, we have fixed the 5 outcomes also, and one common objective, one common outcome. Now, how will we measure it? And then we have to fix the parameters that whenever there will be examination, based on the scoring of the students in module wise, how much expected outcome we have achieved. That was one of the criteria which we have framed. Now, the similar kind of criteria you need to implement, be it as a kind of different assignment. So assignment may also be one of the criteria to fulfill that goal, that how much the students have understood the assignments by which you are trying to encourage them or to make them understand that what is the learning outcome of the students. So somewhere we need to do experiment. If we'll fall on the same line again and again, it will not work. And that's why they are very easily getting. So when we change this, I mean, parameters or techniques, some of the students, they objected also. The majority of these students were such who used to manage the projects. The seniors, they are used to getting the project, they just modify it, change it, and submit it. So that problem is also resolved. So these are some of the things which will otherwise work for the research. Yes. essential. Let's look at some. Some of them want. So, first point, whether bicycle or parts of activity, how we are assessing for different parameters. Different scale, not parameter. It is a parameter. Second, will the administrators write such assessment? No, please complete it. Three. There are two ways. One way is that the committee which is regulating these assignments in consultation with the faculties, because this is not possible involving the faculties. If you will make it compulsion for the faculties without their consent, then it is going to fail. So participation of students and faculty is very important in terms of determining what that's the faculty member is teaching for that particular term. So in case it was one subject, like whatever I am teaching, I am proposing that I should be given liberty. 100 students are there. I am deciding these 5 or 6 different kind of assignments. I will show it to the class, and I'll ask them that whosoever is willing to take up any of out of these 6. That would be one option. If it works. Now the problem in this kind of offer is that sometimes majority of the students they opt only for one kind of assessment, that is project, because it suits, because there are 6 subjects. That shows that the students are somewhere overburdened. They are willing to take up original research, but because of compulsion of 6 different kind of projects which they have to write, they cannot take this liberty to indulge in every subject as a kind of original research. So one way is that the faculty can offer. Second is that the faculties and the committee in consultation, they can find out, and that, say for example, there are 6 subjects in one semester. They say in these 2 subjects, these 2 options would be there. In these 2 subjects, these 2 options would be there, and they can fix the number of students also. Like first come services, 50-50 students or 30 students, 40 students should be there. Or there are various criteria on which you can identify. First option would be the student's choice. Second option would be the faculties or the institution they can divide. It's completely the discretion of the committee or the faculties. But if you do it, that will work. What I feel is. So, any other? Yes, sir.
I think we emphasize upon intellect or labor, not more on imagination, and that's why when we give more and more burden to read and not to think about the subject. So that is the one problem. Second, the autonomy of teacher and students are not respected generally because everything is centralized, everything is normalized. So uniqueness of a student, learning approach of a student is ignored often in research and teaching. So I think problem is too many students are there and teacher cannot look at each and every student. Is also a problem.
One part I cannot answer. See, you were also telling that how to equate them with all assignment. That should be taken care. Otherwise, whichever option is very easy, they will go for it. So you need to make a balance between all assignments. So if somebody is writing the case comment, then if one case comment would not be sufficient, you can ask to write two, or photography. But that's why I said that you need to prepare a booklet criteria wise that what the students are supposed to do and what is the expectation of a teacher. And the expectation of teacher must be equal for all assignment. It should not be that if there will be liberty to do some less work with more marks, then all the students will go because they are all the mark centric with less labor. So the common, practice of the students and their mindset that they don't want to work hard, but at the same time they want to score high. There are students, they want to do some original work irrespective of the marks to learn something. So how to balance? I think to teacher it is not to be told. They know it that how to balance it. If because otherwise it will, the faculty will also react that how you are regulating us. And that's why you say that the autonomy of, without compromising the autonomy of faculties in the class, we should somewhere make it very clear that the sole authority of the subject, if you have decided, then at least hear the options or whatever he is saying or whatever suggestions are, you need to give a serious thinking on that. And if it is not workable, sometimes somebody is very much excited, and there are many options which can be floated in the class. Like some of the faculty members may say that we have to incorporate the take-home examination, right? But whether it will be feasible in the Indian context, because we have seen the online examinations that now the students are not willing to write offline examinations, so much so that they start agitating it. I'm sharing the experience of our institution. February, we invited all the students offline. February, they all joined. They were very happy. After February, the students are praising like anything. And we conducted a survey on Google Form, inviting the options from parents and students that in this scenario, whether we should call the students or not. 50% of the students says that yes, you should call the student. 80% of parents says that you should call them on the campus. They are so much, I mean, the kind of situation which they have suffered in these 2 years, that they are fed up their child, they wanted to settle. So when they joined in February the institution, everything was smooth. We conducted the offline examination also. There was some resistance that we should not conduct the offline examination, but we conducted offline examination. The fifth year's batch will also they were also there. So fifth year batch was supposed to leave after examination. So examinations were scheduled from 14th of May. And 28th April till 30th April, the season of all parties, right? Farewell party and this party, all days were celebrated. 30th, it was over. On first, they demanded, sir, we should have COVID test for all the students. We organized a camp. We organized the camp. So some of the students, they negotiated with the medical officers, sir, at least 20 students, you should be positive. At least the report can be managed. Whatever you want, we are ready to do this. So fortunately, we conducted tests for around 100 students, and only one student found to be positive. We precautionary measures. All of them, they have started challenging that your report is wrong. We want private labs to be called. We did not allow.
Similar situation with us.
Then they went to private labs, they got the positive reports, and they started challenging the government authorities that you are indulging, you are creating a fake kind of test and all. Immediately, the government, they have conducted again, and then ultimately the institution was declared as containment zone. And within containment zone, we had to send the parents and all, they started, the students, they have started taking pictures that we are living in pathetic situation, food is not available, kids are not working. The government provided them the kit. They have somehow managed it, and it was not functional. So they took the pictures, sent the reports to the media that the governments are providing these kind of useless kits. So which means that then ultimately we had to decide for online examination. So they know all kind of tactics. We know, but somewhere we need to encourage them to indulge into the original work. This is a very challenging task these days for the faculties. That how to encourage students to do some original research, which is their work, and for that only they are the institutions. So if we will provide them, because if the same kind of trends is there, sometimes we are also not fair on our part. At least we should provide them the full opportunities, whatever they want to do some original work. And then if they are not doing, at least then we can be a bit rigid. But without providing them the opportunities, if we are asking them to work on the same terms and conditions, which sometimes become not very practical and feasible, that creates the problems. So these are some of the ideas which we can implement it for for changing the whole concept of research in our institution. These are the ways by which we can encourage the students to indulge into original research.
What kind of work do we sign? I think
That's what.
for example, in subject like environmental law, students are like very less rewarded from field work and all.
Yes.
But sir, what are the options available in subject like jurisprudence or contract law? So, then
No, you are not, I mean, it's not a compulsion to, that always you need to give the other options. Some of the subjects where there is a feasibility of only projects, then you give the projects. You can also identify, say, for example, 6 subjects are there in one semester. In 2 semesters, you can fix 4 subjects, you can divide four different kind of options. That's why I say that the subject teacher may be asked that what kind of assignment he or she is willing to give. Or in case if the administration wants to decide, then they should, take in consideration all these aspects. Maybe a uniform policy where you divide that 3 subjects would be open, 3 subjects would where the multiple options would be there. And then you are absolutely right that in all the subjects it cannot work. So depending on the subject, yes.
so whether there should be like one assignment for each module or there should be one assignment for the whole subject. Because when I was teaching in private university, so there we have to give one assignment for each module. So if there's 5 modules in a subject, so we have to give 5 assignments.
Then in total there are 30 assignments.
Yeah, because there are 6
Then
subjects.
how they will be able to write 30?
To check the efficiency of the students
So
also.
when you yourself know this, then it is not possible, then why are you implementing
But
it?
administration wants us to give 5 assignment and then we have to submit the assignment in a, in one folder to the administration that yeah, we have taken this 5 assignment.
I'm sure that faculty meetings takes place in your institution also.
Sir, but there was no faculty meeting first of all, and then it's mandatory that you have to give 5 assignments because there are 5 modules.
It's mandatory because that's a part of their scheme. But the schemes are always subject to change. So who will bring this change? Either the students or faculties. Now you yourself are saying that the 30 different projects for each module is not possible.
And then if you're challenging the norms there, you come out to be a very rebellious. How do you then balance it out?
Right?
Because I'll give you an example. There is definitely a parity in age gap of young faculty members and existing faculty. Existing faculty members are used to the system of projects evaluation. So if you're saying bring about an institutional change wherein you have multiple options of taking up projects, then they are not very happy because for them evaluative mechanism have to come after they come
No,
first.
see,
You're pushing them to come out of the company.
I have a suggestion for that. At least you can seek an appointment. Or the vice chancellor. Then I've seen that the head of the institution is always concerned about the workable solution. So you can go and directly suggest whatever you want and whatever you are thinking with reference to these aspects. Why you are suggesting that, what are the problems and how it can be reviewed, how it can be resolved. At least you will be satisfied that you have done your part.
How do you then balance the resentment of your colleagues? Because उनका भी तो काम पड़ा है.
Don't discuss with the colleagues.
But yeah, I was like,
Now see, then somewhere we need to see, there are, whatever you will do, there will be some repercussion. You need to find out that what is the correct, that individuals are always, this fight will always be there in individuals' minds. But ideally being teacher, you should always choose the correct path. There will be difficulties. Rather, it will reduce the difficulties in longer period of time. It will provide, you see, one of these last year, some of the students, they have worked originally on these environmental problem. And they have conducted some study in 5 villages. And on the basis of that study, they submitted a report to the government and the concerned ministry of the state. And their observations and the recommendations were considered by them. And that original concept or the contribution has changed the perception of university also. It has got the recognition for university also, individual students also. University also facilitated them. They gave some incentives to them. So it always plays. At least 100 students are working, 2, 3, 5. they can contribute something very big. That liberty should be provided. That is only my concern is that we need to find out the ways which are workable rather than relying on the same kind of patterns which we have seen that it is not working more. When the government, and it's not policy, this is not possible from the government side. They can only create or they can make the policies, which they are doing it. We are seeing that every now and then the UGC is making recommendations and sending the notifications. The policies are every year changed. The government is also saying multiple kind of things and various kind of policies. Recently, the new education policy where so many different kind of expectations are there. But a country like India, where we have different kind of combinations of institutions, we have the central universities, the state universities, autonomous universities, institution of national importance, then autonomous bodies, colleges. The one single policy will not work. Rather than we need to find out that how autonomy should be provided to the institutions, where they will create a conducive environment, visible and workable to achieve the heights and the objectives which are set for. And that is possible only by providing the appropriate space or the sufficient space to think and implement all those. Any other observation?
Currently, there is this scheme of things where the grant is provided, they give you an output also, and just merely expected that the researcher provide research to satisfy that. So, how do you overcome that as a researcher? Because mostly government funding that comes right now, it's how you have the cost, how you have the government sends only tied funds to state. Similarly, they send tied funds to researchers also. Then how do you as a researcher stay objective or add to the original knowledge? And at the same time, see as researchers, we also need to financially support ourselves. You cannot be merely just doing research and not even have money to do.
That happens only in such institutions where they have already analyzed and they are expecting some specific outputs or they want the output on a specific concern. Say for example, the some of the commissions like Human Rights Commission or some of the ministries. Recently, our Vice Chancellor has published an article on right to repair, just published in Hindu and some other papers. It was picked up by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Department. They called a meeting with our institution and they say that this concept we are already working on. We want you to conduct a research and research on the line that how we can give a status to right to repair under the Consumer Protection Act of 2000 as an additional right to the consumers, whereby they are trying the line of research, time also, parameters also, which means they are very particular about giving the status to this right to repair in the consumer protection. So, which means somewhere, in case if some of the ministries or funding agencies which are working on certain dimensions, they will always be very particular because that suits their policy. Either you do it, otherwise they themselves will do it. That's what has happened when the Consumer Protection Act was supposed to be amended. They granted impact assessment yesterday to the Consumer Research Center, New Delhi. Huge grant of around 2 crore rupees was given to them. And they further provided the funds to various state agencies, institutions, and as Bangalore also this. They conducted the research on various, so the parameters were set by the ministry itself. That we want that how to incorporate the provisions with reference to misleading advertisement. We want that how to fix the responsibilities of celebrities in terms they are indulging into misleading advertisement. So when they have the specific objectives whereby they are providing funds, they are providing funds for specific purposes only. That's what the funding agency's role is. You cannot take the funds from the Human Rights Commission and submit the reports for environmental justice. They need something, it may be related, it can relate it. Or
Final outcome.
Yeah.
And then it so happens that they give you, yeah, this is the conclusion, the provider's research to reach that conclusion.
No, no,
You are the researcher, then are you not?
that-
Are you not?
No, that is not the research.
Ethical.
No, that is not research. That is not the research.
Especially if it's a government organization. That's what I said, tied funds.
No.
The
That
outcomes
is not
tied.
research. Even private organizations, that's the part of the private institutions, majority of times, specifically these survey methods which are adopted during the election times, where some of the agencies say that we need to have this result, that this party should win, or similar kind of, mostly the NGOs or the agencies which are funded by international agencies to achieve some specific target, they are indulging such kind of activities which are not the original research. That is not the purpose of research. If when we discuss the ethical or ethics of the researcher, one of the researchers, they should not draw the conclusion first and then to pursue the research. You need to only, what is the status or what the stages of research? That you should have a research problem, that is the identification of research, then formulation of research problem. The second important thing is the literature review, so that you will come to know what is the purpose of literature review. To know that how much work has already been done, what would be the scope of your study. Then once you have decided, then the methodology, the objectives. Based on that, once you have undergone with this literature review, you will be able to know that these are the reasons, these are the possibilities, which means you are able to formulate the hypothesis. Now you have framed the hypothesis, your methodology is also there. Now you either if it is a doctrinal research, then you find out what are the sources for that. If it is empirical research, then you will find out what are the tools there. Whether you should go for the interview or for observations or for schedule, for questionnaire, and for each and every aspect somewhere. What I feel is that whatever subject or whatever area on which you are conducting the research, there is always a scope to conduct the research by adopting multiple research methodologies. Even if subjects which are the fundamentals, so for example, if you are conducting the research on the role of Constitutional Assembly debate in terms of strengthening the right to life in India, it is core of doctrinal nature. But here also there is a possibility to indulge in empirical research. You can formulate questionnaires, you can take the opinion of judicial members, judicial officers, advocates, law students, faculties, that what they're feeling about, which means there is no watertight confinement of formula by which you can conduct the research. There is always a scope to conduct the research by adopting empirical research. And wherever you are conducting the empirical research, the doctrinal research is a part of it. Because some of or the other way, you will indulge into some kind of literature. Even if you have not specifically consulted specific references or books, at the time when you have studied the literature review and you have explored all the available resources, you have already taken the doctrinal research and to frame your ideas, to raise your questions, to understand the objects, to fix your scope, to formulate your hypothesis, to fix or to decide the methodology which will be workable for that. And then in every kind of method, there will be some or the other scope for mistakes, right? Because all the data cannot be considered as the perfect data. Nowadays, there are very unique kind of problems. Now you are sending or collecting the data online to Google Forms, right? Which is good that at least you are getting the information. But that kind of information where if you are going and interacting with the participants or the respondents, that will give you some additional informations also. Now the problem is by online mode, because everybody is considering the time and money to very important aspect of research. So during the COVID pandemic, even the government or the UGC also allowed that the empirical research can be conducted through online mode also, and they have extended the time period for research also. But in majority of this period of 2 years COVID pandemic, the researchers relied on online resources and online interaction. So much so that they have taken the interviews online of the respondents wherever they have given the consent. So there is absolutely no problem. But in all kind of data collection, there is a scope of some kind of mistakes. Now, second part is the most important aspect is when it comes to some sensitive issues. They like problem of domestic violence. If you go and find out the original data, the victims, they are not very open to speak on such a stuff. So there, how to collect the information. So wherever you are providing the topics to your students, or wherever you are deciding the research topics, be it as a dissertation or thesis, you should give some additional advantages or additional time to the students, those who are taking up these kind of topics. Because it's not very easy to collect the information. The victims, they will say everything to you, but without disclosing their names. And some of the questions they will not feel comfortable to answer it. So there are ways, because you all have studied it, there are ways by way you can put these kind of respondents by giving them some different names. But these all you need to keep the record of. You cannot, because much of the manipulations takes place when these kind of respondents are there. When the respondent is not known or known only to the person who is conducting the interviews, it's completely the discretion of the researcher to manipulate. And that's why this I mean, data flooding, where sometimes you conduct the research for 200 students or 200 participants and respondents, and then you convert it into 400. You find that no, the data is not absolute or available. When it comes to the online responses, you cannot fabricate the data, because every response is captured and it is a part of record. Google form you cannot change again and again. But if you are conducting the, which means in each and every aspect of research, there is a possibility. That's why we say that the research would be conducted or the fruitful results can be achieved only when the researcher is honest toward the research. Much of the problem of the young student is they are very fearful. Whatever the decisions or the contributions or conclusions drawn, they always tries to follow in the same line, right? Because the literature review has already provided you the reasons, justifications. We have studied so many good authors on that, and all of them they have given an opinion. But that opinion and what context it was concluded, maybe sometimes the conditions of European countries with reference to one specific aspect is very different, because their conditions, their social conditions, their financial status is very different. The same kind of problem, if you are taking and conducting research in India, that to some remote area, the result would be completely different. Now the researcher must be that much courageous to take up all those references and to conclude the original result, irrespective whether the hypotheses are tested positive or negative. Why we always tries to prove the hypothesis positive to draw a specific conclusion? Then it is the same thing that you are end up with the same kind of research where you are not contributing something original. You are just justifying your research on the same line so that you will not face some odd questions from the externals in the why, or you will always score good marks. If marks is the criteria for research, you will never achieve the correct output. That's why there are so many different kind of problems in the research. We need to consider each and every aspect, and it's not, sometimes it is becoming very difficult. It's not in the hand of even the teachers that they can, one day they can change. But some are alternate ways we need to think all the time. The purpose of these kind of FDPs is this only, that we need to find out ways whereby we can contribute something to encourage the students to indulge in original research. And if the parameters would not be changed, if you want that the parameters remain same, only the expectation should be changed and the functioning of the student should change, it will never happen. Somewhere we need to provide flexibility, somewhere they need to work hard, somewhere an institution should provide and facilitate or give the autonomy to the individual faculties, then only the objectives can be achieved. Because if you want that you have the liberty to guide the students as per your expectations, then that liberty should also be there with you. That is what, because every student they have a different kind of capabilities. Somewhere you need to give them some kind of relaxations also. There may be some different kind of problems, or somewhere language problem is there, somewhere financial problem with the student. There are multiple kind of problems. If you give any student uh, empirical research where they need to conduct the survey in different districts, whereas that person is conducting or continuing the study on educational loan. This would be the additional burden. He will never ever be comfortable to conduct such kind of research. So we need to consider all these aspects. Then only, and the students, they will not share you all their problems. So somewhere we need to provide them this flexibility if we really want to have the desired result. And in that condition, we need to provide them the opportunities.
Get very fixed.
Yes.
So because of the complexity of methods, conclusions are always the same, or appears to be same. So if you get any method is answered.
For that, so see, that's why I said that nowadays it's not, there is a possibility that you can rely on one specific method and you can conduct this, but it is always better to have multiple kind of methods. That's why, say, I've seen some of the research thesis, the PhD thesis, where in majority of the thesis, the researchers, they write in first chapter, the research methodology, which is common. Some of the research thesis I have seen where they write the research methodology chapter wise. That I have adopted this method for second chapter, which is up to an extent historical background in this, where the doctrinal method will be. Where some of the problem or hypothesis or chapter which is related to this hypothesis, which are practical in nature, where I am conducting the empirical research, then accordingly, that justifies the work also. So it should always be focused on that what you are going to achieve or what is the expectation of that hypothesis. If you are very rigid that no, that's why I said that in every kind of problem or research topic, there is a scope to implement the doctrinal research or empirical research. And it is advised that in all the topics, there must be some or the other topic or some or the other way by which you should indulge into some kind of empirical research. At least the opinion of the concerned person can be obtained. That would be there.
Any regulation on reduction of patient? Yes, thesis. Like, I mean, Delhi University has come down from 300. Now, a good decent PhD thesis. Now it's going down.
We have fixed the minimum numbers. That is also the minimum number of PhD in our institution is 150 pages. So that also we are in last meeting, some of the observations that at least we should also not fix that limit. But many of the faculty say that no, it will be very difficult to justify. Sometimes the problem is that institution is willing to provide all liberty, but the external examiners outside, they write some odd comments on that. And if the original work of 80 pages or 100 pages there, they say, so much of work is not, or so much of different kind of aspects are not covered in that. And so then it will be very injustice for the student because he has done everything on that part. So, but yes, we are implementing many such kind of things. I have joined in April, and in last semester onwards, we have introduced 16 different kind of options in the projects and assignments. And we are preparing the booklet also. It will be ready. I have already shared with Sarah. So we are working on that, and that's why we also, because it's a new trend, we are only implementing. There will be multiple kind of changes in that. So you can also, and in case if you want to suggest other thing also. So for example, if you think that this specific assignment would really be workable, then you can add it or put it on your website so that the others will also be benefited. Some parameters we have introduced that in case if students are participating in any international moot, and if they are conducting research and they are indulging for 2-3 months or 5 months, and they are getting some prizes in that, then that can also be considered as an assignment, as an option. Otherwise, if they are mad when they prepare for moots, they put all their efforts. When they are sincere, they are really very sincere. So then obviously they will not do much work in the research of the other projects and all. Then somebody else will prepare or that. So if we will consider them, or give them some average marks based on that performance, then that will relax them. So these kind of somewhere we need to, I think we have overburdened the students in some of the, that if we'll relax them, then only these original research will be, so yeah, I was given the topic to discuss research methods and tools. So while preparing this for today's discussion, I read an article yesterday, and this presentation is based on that article. That article is of Kavita Agrawal, professor of Pune University. And that article was contributed in the book of ILI publication. That is a paper in that. That in that paper, she has suggested various kind of models for legal research. What kind of models would be there and how we can relate with the legal research. That I just wanted to discuss with you because method and methodology you all know. Yes. These are the models which they suggest. Evaluative model, explicative model, explanatory model, impact analysis, projective and predictive, interactive, interpretive, and connective. Now, these are not these methodologies, these are not the methods, these are only the models. And in these models, there are scope to incorporate either the doctrinal research methodology or empirical research methodology. Now, why it is relevant? Because sometimes we write, I've seen in some dissertation that the students writes that they have adopted the comparative analysis of contents in between India and America. And they consider that this approach is a research method. Whereas it can be classified into some of the other models. These are not the, this is the approach which they have adopted. Normally, generally, we say that researchers are of three nature. One is either the comparative analysis, critical analysis, or general analysis. So if these are all the approaches, these are not the methodologies or methods. So similarly, these are all the models which are not the methodology or methods of research. You can have these kind of research. If you want to, based on the objective of the research, these models can be adopted. Like in evaluative model, where we are concerned that what are the evolution of legal phenomena and events possible for shaping the growth of legal facts under such a study, like historical research. Right, in case if your topic is the role of Constitutional Assembly debate in making of constitution, it's a kind of evaluative model of which you are indulging in research. I'm not talking about the methodology. For this, you can adopt the doctrinal research or the empirical research also. That is different. But these kind of, if on the basis of objective or on the basis of nature of the topic which you determine, if it includes or talks about the evaluation of that legal phenomena, then it is a part of that evaluative model. When it comes to the explicative model, the model is used to ascertain the nature, scope, and source of law. Now you can say that this nature, scope, and source of law is also applicable to the evaluative model. But it depends. Here, it is purely based on where you are trying to map it. Say, for example, a study of criminal justice administration in India. What is nature? It can be classified into anyone. So, or several provisions, parts, facts of law, which where it's a combination where you need to analyze each and every dimension which is relevant for that. So, when it comes to the study of criminal justice administration, all the provisions, the substantive law, procedural law, various kind of regulations, administrative decisions, all would be considered, and then it will be explained to the in that model which will be applicable. Another, again, the methodology would remain same. You can adopt the doctrinal research. This is how she tried to justify that there are multiple kind of models. The models can be clubbed for individual research. It can be classified also. So it's a kind of only a justification for various models in which the research can be adopted. I thought that this would be something new. That's why I'm sharing it. Otherwise, it's the doctrinal and non-doctrinal research you all know. Then identificatory kind of model based on where the identification, it includes the study of law meant for a specific group. We identify various kind of problems. Say, for example, under trial prisoners are there, right? The displaced person are there. So in case if you are conducting a study on the right and human rights and protection of human rights of displaced person, be it as an internally displaced person or externally displaced person. And up till 2013, in India, there was no law to regulate the resettlement and rehabilitation. It was only through policy. And that policy itself was a very problematic because every state has a different kind of policy. So somewhere a state is providing compensation of crores of rupees, whereas the other states are providing peanuts. And that results ultimately violates the human rights of the individuals. So in case if you are acquiring, specifically for the development projects, like there are so many development projects, this dam construction, road construction, railway construction, infrastructure building. And for that, all you need the lands. And if you are acquiring it, and if by compulsion you are acquiring, that there must be some justifiable resettlement and rehabilitation. The resettlement, you are providing them the funds, you are giving the monies. Resettlement, how you are, whether you are providing alternate lands to them, future plans, education. Somewhere, if they have their own businesses, they might have agricultural land also. So, if a person is living in a place for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, all of a sudden, if you are taking or you are asking him to leave the place and to settle somewhere else, there must be some justiciable grounds and appropriate compensation for that. So that compensation was the biggest problem because it was settled through policies. So in case if there was no law and you are identifying the problem of that group, which is that's why I said that identificatory model where you have identified a group and you are working for that only, be it as a prisoners or under trials or displaced person, vulnerable groups, old age people. These kind of problems will attract this identificatory model in which you will study and try to resolve these problems. And impact analysis, I gave you the example of this Consumer Protection Act that the ministry, when they were supposed to amend the Consumer Protection Law of 2019, they conducted impact assessment, and for which they have provided funds. So that the 25 years experience of the Consumer Protection Act can be analyzed, and wherever there were flaws, then they can amend it. And based on this impact assessment, whatever research they funded research were conducted by various institutions, the report was submitted. Based on that report, they have amended the law. Now they are again in the process. Because even after that process, there are certain rights and some new emerging areas developed. And you will find that multiple kind of legislations will be under process of amending or scrutiny, because in this COVID pandemic period, so much of different kind of aspects were explored, be it as online activities or online e-commerce. There are so many. I think the global pandemic has impacted on each one's life. The government has also changed their policies. So many new activities, new ventures evolved. So many startups are coming up. So there are so many things which are changing. And maybe in near future, there will be different kind of changes in the law. So there may be some new legislations will come, some of the laws which will become outdated. So in case if these kind of things are changing, then how to incorporate all this? Because if the society is dynamic, law cannot be static. Law should always be dynamic. So in case if we need to provide the appropriate justice, then we need to somewhere update the laws also. And that's why they are not very rigid that just now in 2019 we have enacted a legislation. We should not amend it so frequently. If there is a need, if there is a new concept where there is an injustice, why this right to repair it? Because it creating so much of injustice. Like if you purchase a iPhone today, after 2 years they'll say that this technology is gone. Now it's an upgraded version. Every year they will launch new version and they say there is around it. And in case if there is any repair required, they will say only the service station will do it, no other person. So in automobile industries, there are so many new vehicles launched and then the company they just pack it and they run away. What is the repairing parts are not available, service stations are not available. You spend so much of money, huge market is there. So these are all the reasons. So these some of the branches are always require the frequent observations on different activities. So how to cope up with different kind of legislation to better the need of the society, that is always there. So impact analysis is always for such kind of studies. Then projective or predictive methodology where of models where the study which is carried to anticipate the effect of a proposed legal measure. Right? Like a study of public opinion and reaction to proposed increase in cell tax. You always do it. Now GST, how many changes and amendments are there? Still, it is not fixed. The state are still not happy. So much so that every month they have some or the other meeting to include some of the permutation and combination. Somewhere the state says that we have lost our revenues. Now the kind of amount which they were receiving, majority of the states they are not receiving the same amount. The subsidies have also been not released, like the state of Punjab. They are suffering because of which, because this GST amount is not appropriately adjusted. So it has, and somewhere the government also take as a means of revenge. If they don't have the government of the same political party, they don't release the funds for that. So these are all different kind of things. So in case, and it has always been a very good, whenever the government they make any changes, like in 2000, this intermediary regulation under the IT Act, we had this 2011 regulations. But meanwhile, there were so many changes. This privacy was breached. There are online multiple kind of frauds taking place, where these foreign companies they are doing their businesses without any responsibilities. So all these online intermediaries, they were beyond their liabilities, and the governments were also up to an extent providing them safe harbor, where since the digital India or different kind of concepts were floated by the government, they are up to an extent dependent on these intermediaries. So they were not taking any strict kind of actions against them. What they were doing, they were simply saying that these intermediaries should take up all these measures of due diligence. So whenever you are logging onto online portal, they will just ask for registration. And in registration, they will ask for an agreement where they will ask you to submit and agree on the terms and conditions, where the responsibility is of yours, that you will not indulge in any kind of activities which is violative of any law, unethical, impractical, or against the law. So it's your responsibility. If you are indulging, then they will not be responsible. For that, since there were so many flaws and these companies were melting money in India but not without any responsibility, the Ministry of the Electronics and Information Technology, they have, along with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, they have come up with 2021 these legislation and IT regulations, whereby they are trying to fix the responsibility of intermediaries. So that in case now they have said that now you have to provide the dispute resolution mechanism, you should have a registered office, so many liabilities. It's a kind, still there are flaws in that. They are just again making the same kind of practices where much of the responsibility is under the due diligence is on the users rather than the intermediaries. But somehow they are trying to. So when this policy was framed or 2022 regulations, the regulations were framed in 2018. And in 2018, they uploaded on various portals. They invited suggestions from the individuals, institutions, all whosoever the part of stakeholders, so that at least the adaptability would be there. Now, in all those options, the media persons and various companies, they have not made any kind of comments. They have not submitted their suggestions. The day it was implemented, they have filed a writ petition and challenged that this is violative of various kind of rights. So there are so many difficulties. when nobody wants to have liabilities or responsibilities. Everybody talks about the rights without responsibility and duties. So that is what. So whenever these kind of the norms which are required to be, implemented on individuals. That's what we say in jurisprudence. We have studied the public opinion is the best source of making law. If there will be adaptability, it will be more successful law. So in case if such kind of surveys are conducted or research are conducted, where they take the opinion of the people before implementing such, these are called part of this model of projective or predictive. Interactive also, which is there are many topics which are multidisciplinary of nature. So, for example, the honor killing. In case if you are conducting only legal research, it will not serve the purpose. You need to go and find out the mindset of people in the society, that why this problem persists. If it will be only a legal kind of thing, then Supreme Court has already given directions. There are many judgments on which some kind of provisions have been made, some directions have been issued. But until unless you will find out that what are the reasons, what is the mindset of society, how the mindset can be changed, then only it is possible. So if you are conducting such kind of research where interaction is very important or multidisciplinary approach is required, that's why we says that socio-legal kind of research, where the reasons which are socially responsible for having that problem, and you are trying to suggest the appropriate measures to resolve it, then this will fall in this category of interactive model. Then interpretative, there are many provisions which are fixed, but you want to analyze. Similar, I have given you some examples also. You may think on different dimensions. These were the examples which I found it. These examples are not there in that article, but I thought that if this example would be there, it would be easy to understand. So, say for example, if you are conducting a research on right to life under Indian Constitution, judicial opinion, where you are only analyzing the judgments which are there, the kind of interpretation which has been given. So you are interpreting the concept which has already been established and developed through various judicial pronouncement, and you are analyzing it. So these kind of researches, there are many kind of researches which suits into this model of interpreting. Then collective model where collection of legal facts, materials, it's a kind of compilation. Compilation is also a kind of research, say, like digest of statutory provisions. There are so many different kind of like CPR, CPJ, the Consumer Protection Judgment Reports, a specific category, company law digest, where one specific kind of area has been selected and you just do some research, you compile it, you brief it. Now the summary cases are also there. Like case mine is there, which provides a 2-page summary of the judgment, which is very convenient and easy, specifically for the teachers to discuss in the class with brief. But the students are also smart. They also read from the case mind and then they they read the whole judgment and they trouble the faculties asking something very relevant. This, but it's good. This, so collective model where all these comparison can take place. And yeah, these are the challenges and problems. So these are the models which were reflected there in the that article. That these are the models where some or the other, because any kind of research which you are conducting will fall in these kind of any category of this model. Maybe more than one category also, but these are the models which will be relevant for you. And for this, the empirical research, doctrinal research, combination of research, whatever suits to the nature of the research or the problem which you have identified would be workable for that. So now, if we move to models to the challenges and problems, some of the problems already we have discussed it. The very first problem is identification and formulation of topic. So wherever you will find, many of you might have also. I myself has struggled a lot when I submitted my topic for PhD thesis. They've changed at least size of more than 3 times. And then they said, so what is feasible? Whether the board should decide the topic and give it to the student, or the student should be provided this option to conduct the research in his own area. Because if your research cannot be, compelled to anybody, you can only, if somebody is interested, say for example, if a student has a specialization in undergraduate and postgraduate, in business law or in criminal law. So you are giving the topic of criminal law to a business law person who is having the interest in some corporate law or in IPR, which he is willing or she is willing to pursue. If he is ready or she is ready to explore the possibility in criminal law, that's absolutely fine. That's what the object of the policies are, that the more and more liberty should be there in the hand of the students or the researchers. But somewhere if the institution is fixing, in the same field, it's fine. If you are interested to conduct the research in criminal law and your topic is modified, it's fine. But cancelling the topic and awarding something which is not of in your zone, that affects, because if until unless you are comfortable, until unless the topic encourages you or you have some personal interest, you will not do 100% in that. So somewhere that kind of liberty should be given. So there are problems in terms of identification. Similar that applies to the projects in the class and everything. Then what should be the appropriate mechanism? I think the teacher should be given the liberty to determine with the help of the students. Somewhere you can say that you can provide these are 10 options in which the assignments can be allocated. You provide us what about the areas in which you are comfortable, and then you should amend it, change it, make it workable, and give it to you. So that that purpose would also be defeated. That in case if they have already something in their hand to submission, and that can be resolved. Then financial viability should always be done when it comes to the empirical research. Methodology, you are free. Uh, the faculty should encourage the students to at least indulge in some of the parameters for empirical research. Now the empirical research is conducted through online modes also. You can ask for the views of various people, so Google Forms and all. But somewhere they should indulge into empirical research, because purely doctrinal sometimes becomes very monotonous, and the same kind of findings you'll find in that. So if possible, they should encourage at least 5, 10, 15, 25 responses. So by that way, they will be able to analyze, because the moment you ask to conduct a survey or a questionnaire, then the data is come. When the data is there, the data is based on some variables. When the variables are there, the students are bound to establish a relation in reference to the variables. Then they need to analyze it. Then the data is required to be prepared, presented, analyzed, scrutinized. The interpretation would be there, and based on that interpretation, they will test the hypothesis. So various parameters of research methodology would be fulfilled if you ask them to indulge into some kind of empirical research. And by a very small kind of group or target, they will be able to access. The purpose is only that they should be aware about that how these are required to be implemented. Once they will be okay with that, then they themselves will try to. Nowadays, there are multiple kind of softwares also, SPSs also, that is applicable with reference to the PhD thesis where the data is very huge. But in a small number, it can be worked out through Excel also. And these days, the students are very techno-friendly. They know much more than us. I'm talking about myself, not about. uh, then these are in every stage there will be a problem to determine the universe, whether you will decide the universe or they will decide the universe. Whether you will say that you conduct the research in 5 districts or they will take up the 2 districts. Everywhere you need to be on the same page. If the supervisor and the researcher is on the same page, the research will be very smoothly conducted. If researchers goes this direction, this goes that direction, then the research is in no direction. So try to come on the same page. Then these are all the difficulties which we need to think and to resolve. My object of discussing these things is just to give you something to think on. That is what the purpose of these kind of FDPs are. Then you just think on these dimensions. These are the problems, and these are the problems which have very reasonable solutions. And each one of us can resolve this. The only thing is that how to resolve, you need to find out. Be it in the consultation with your faculties, in consultation with your administration, in consultation with the students. The sooner you resolve it, it is better for all of us. And this will really contribute for the betterment of the legal research. Second is the tools of data collection. These Do you want anything specific in reference to the data collections? We all know the questionnaire, then interview techniques, the quantitative data, qualitative data. In case if you have any specific queries or questions, that can be taken up. Because, for example, I have to conduct it. What kind of data? What topic you are looking for? Much would be the qualitative data, but you can collect some quantitative data also. On the same ground, you need to create the question. It depends because this was the kind of topic where much of the things can be learned from observations also. So first you observe these communities to formulate your hypothesis. And based on the hypothesis, you interact with, because it will be very difficult for you to collect the data in this regard. Much of the data would be of qualitative nature. So find out, because the researcher is having the liberty all the time. If you will fix the outline of your methodology, it will be difficult for you. Don't be so rigid in research. Always be very flexible. And then whatever is workable, because if you fix the parameters first, I always used to say to the students who are working with me that you find out, you explore everything, take the liberty, and then submit it. And if it is required to be changed, change it also. Don't think that I will not approve it. I will approve if you will justify it. So all the time you ask for justification. If they are appropriate justification, then allow them. Yes.
Do not take willing to answer that question. Say, for example, if we say that we are going to publish this data or we are going to publish your answer, so they are not going to like answer. For example, I'm like going to conduct research on sand mining. जैसे for example, वहाँ पे laborers हैं, तो अगर हम उनको ये बोलेंगे कि
Mafias are also there. You should not be worried about the respondent. You should be worried about mafias.
अगर say कि आप अभी मॉनसून में जैसे ban है sand mining, तो अगर हम उनको पूरा रिवील कर देते हैं कि हम ये रिसर्च में यूज करने वाले हैं, तो सर दे विल नेवर आंसर. तो सर आप ऐसा बोले कि नहीं हम वैसे जनरली पूछ रहे हैं, तो सर कैन वी यूज दोस आंसर इन आवर रिसर्च?
See, even the news, these journalists, they inquire so many things. So much of information are provided from the government sources also, confidential information. And much of the information they never reveal because it creates a kind of threat for their life also. So much so in some specific cases. So in some sensitive cases, because on ethical part, one of the ethical norm is that you should not cheat the respondent. So you can very well explain that you will collect the information, but without naming them. You can quote them also, respondent X, respondent Y, where you know. But your responsibility is that you should not manipulate by taking the advantage that this person is not known to anybody. So you can write whatever you want. That's what the judges they used to do. So you take the responses, you note it down, and then because these are all the learnings, these are new facts which otherwise you will not come to. And these people who are part of these kind of activities, they will tell you each and every dimensions, so minor details that where are the flaws, so much so that how the government is involved in all kind of these illegal practices. So you can take the information, you can quote them in various categories, and then you can cite it also. But don't create a problem for them. That would be on your time. I know that I'm in between you and your visit to some days, and then Sundays you all are troubled. But I hope I have not troubled you much. So these are all from my side. Any other question? No question. If there is no question, then there are two interpretations. And you know both the interpretations, but I take the first one that you have understood everything. Or else, my email ID is there. At a point of time, if you want to discuss, I'm open.
Thank you so much.
I should propose vote of thanks to all of you. See, there is no need to thank because we all are academics, and we are I also learned something by this discussion. You also learned. And everybody has to move from this place to that place to this place to some other place. So this is only a time gap. So I'm thankful to all of you, and specifically thanks to the organizers for such a wonderful event, and inviting me to share my views and my concerns for the research, which if you will also feel, then the shape of the legal research will change. Thank you.
Thank you so much.